Thanks, JJ. I'm Ron Spangler. I'm a program director here at MIT ILP and Startup Exchange. As JJ mentioned, we are having workshops tomorrow. Because climate and sustainability are so important globally right now, and because that's the kind of thing MIT addresses, there are many climate sustainability related consortia, initiatives, labs, and centers here at MIT, to the point where for industry it can become a little bit confusing. They're all great. We love all our children. Four of them have graciously agreed to partner with us and present these workshops tomorrow on various topics, and we wanted to give you a chance to be introduced to them before you come in and talk to them tomorrow. So that's what we'll do for the next 20 minutes. I will not come back on stage. I'll just ask the first to come up, which is Jeremy Gregory from the Climate and Sustainability Consortium, and then I'll ask the rest of them to come up in the order that they're in your program, and I hope you enjoy. Jeremy.
Hi there, I'm Jeremy Gregory. I'm the Executive Director of MIT's Climate and Sustainability Consortium. And this is a relatively new initiative at MIT that seeks to partner academia with industry to try to address and scale climate and sustainability solutions as fast as possible. And we launched last year in February of 2021, starting with 13 partners, and now we're up to 18, and they're all from different sectors. So our members include Accenture, Apple, Boeing, Cargill, Dow. I could keep going alphabetically through them all, but you can find them on our website. But one of the reasons that we want those companies from those different sectors is because we really feel like, just like we heard in the last session, that they all have these net zero goals, and they're doing a lot to decarbonize their own industries, but they also have significant challenges that span the value chain, including both upstream challenges and also downstream challenges as well. And so finding ways to collaborate with other partners is really what we're all about, and connecting them with each other and then also with the MIT community. And we do that through a three-pronged approach that we call strategize, implement, and educate. The strategize part is really working with our member companies to understand what are those challenges that they can't address. They all on their website will have these great reports about everything they're doing and in ESG-related initiatives, and that's very much true. But we want to go kind of like the next level deeper and say, you've set this goal that might be about your scope 1, 2, or 3 emissions. What is the thing that you're most concerned about? And we want to find those commonalities across all our different member companies. So we spent a lot of time with that. From that, we developed what we call implementation pathways, and we have developed platforms of work around common challenges to all of them, including decarbonizing tough transportation, value chain resilience, circularity, natural carbon sinks, and then carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration. Many of the topics you just heard being discussed here. We also have 2 cross-cutting themes around data and computing, and then also social dimensions. And so that's kind of the implementation part of our work. We spend a lot of time then having postdoctoral impact fellows from our group work with our member companies, and then also with people across the MIT community. We just launched 20 different seed projects where we have work going on in this space with people from all 5 of MIT schools. And so this is a real way that we get our member companies to collaborate with the MIT community on this. And then lastly, we have this platform of education where we have a lot of undergraduates involved in research. We just launched a new program around climate that we call Climate Scholars, where students are working with faculty on these different topics. So we have a lot of work going on in the consortium. A big part of what we do in the consortium is run workshops to get people to come together, both in our member companies and with the MIT community, to talk about these different topics. And that's what led us to be delighted to contribute a few workshops tomorrow on these different topics. One is going to be around plastics and circularity, and this is a big topic for many different member companies that we have. One of our companies is PepsiCo, as you can imagine, has a lot of packaging-related challenges, but Apple has challenges as well. Dow is producing plastics. So this is something that we're talking about quite a bit with our member companies. And in particular, the workshop is going to be about designing the plastics for end of life. And we take that design to include the material standpoint. And so we have researchers from MIT, people from Brad Olson's research group in chemical engineering who are going to talk about that. And then we also have some companies that are going to be talking about it. We have someone from BASF, I just saw in the back of the room, Tom Holcomb is going to talk about this from BASF's perspective. But we also want to think about design from the perspective of companies thinking about products as well. So that'll be one workshop. The other one is going to be about pathways to achieving net zero greenhouse gas reductions. And so many companies, as I mentioned, have set these different targets, and we're going to have discussions with companies that are setting those targets, including Delta Airlines and Takeda, and researchers at MIT that are thinking about this from those perspectives as well. So both of those, I encourage you to participate. They're going to be a lot of fun. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be with you. My name is John Fernandez. I'm the director of the Environmental Solutions Initiative. I've got 5 minutes, so go to our website, esi.mit.edu. It's all there, multiple pages, lots of detail. We're a big organization at MIT. I'll tell you about it in a second. First, I actually want to start out with some climate science fiction. You may or may not have read Ministry for the Future. Anyone? It did pretty well, that book. The first few chapters of that book, in fact, the book opens with a harrowing scenario of an extreme heat event in Uttar Pradesh in India. And over a 2-week period, it's fiction, so it's first person, it's all the details, all good fiction. It's all about what that would be, what would that look like in a 2-week period of plus 35 degrees Celsius wet bulb temperature, and several 100,000 people die in 2 weeks in a region. That's climate science fiction, cli-fi. The distance between cli-fi and real science is becoming closer and closer. They're becoming synonymous. The latest assessment report of the IPCC makes it very clear that a lethal 1 in 10-year event will become a 4 in 10-year event when we get to 1.5 degrees average surface temperature. A 1 in 50-year event will become a 9 in 50-year event, lethal event. And we know that this is going to happen. We know this is the reality that we're facing right away. So the question I'm asking you is, these accelerating climate consequences moving a lot faster than projected even just a few years ago, what are you going to say when your company is faced with this kind of scenario? What are you going to do when your own physical assets and your employees and your supply chains are under threat, not in 2050, but in 2033, because it's now projected that we're going to be crossing 1.5 degrees of warming, very likely in the early 2030s, right? Early 2030s, just a few years from now. So the Environmental Solutions Initiative is all about solutions. It's all about working on those things that we have control over and can do something about. I would have loved to have answered some of those questions before in the engine discussion, because carbon capture, forget about it for now. Mitigation is what's important. Carbon capture at scale needs to happen in 2035, 2040. But the capture part is not the important part. It's what to do with 5 gigatons of carbon dioxide. Where do you put it? Where are we going to put it? It's a material handling problem. And large companies, material handling companies, will have a central role in carbon capture, but that's 2035. So we're working with companies on mitigating their carbon emissions, adapting to the accelerating climate consequences, and also acting as good global citizens in what they can do within their houses and beyond their operations. The ESI, the Environmental Solutions Initiative, was founded in 2014. I stepped in as a director early in when the ESI was really just kind of ideas and fumes. And we really have expanded it at MIT to be a central organization working to support research, enabling the MIT faculty and students to work on solutions, to develop and manage educational programming, both for our own students. We have a minor for environment and sustainability that any undergraduate can take. But I've also written a course in sustainability that's been taken, and it's offered through MIT Professional Education, that's been taken by hundreds of employees, C-suite, middle managers from companies, because one of the most important solutions is lifting the literacy level across industries and within companies to be able to do what you can in this space. And third, we work in engagement. So we have a very rich climate communications portfolio. We manage the climate portal, climate.mit.edu. That's another one, easy to remember. And we also have a podcast, TIL Climate. So if you want to know about any particular major topic in climate science in 10 minutes, go to TIL Climate, which was rated by the New York Times 3 years ago as one of the top 10 podcasts on climate science. And we do a lot of engagement with companies. So I have been speaking to companies, dozens of companies in the last few years. And one of the things that I say is the risks that you are facing as an organizational, real perceived reputational, are coming fast and furious. And the question to answer is, how do you position yourself to contribute to mitigating carbon emissions, but then how do you position yourself within the landscape of industry, within your industrial sector, but with other companies in contending with what is going to be a very sobering future. So I hope to be, we will be around. We have a setup tomorrow. Come see the Environmental Solutions Initiative. Very happy to talk to you and figure out ways we can work together. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Farhan Aragan. I'm the Executive Director, Aerospace and Climate and Sustainability in the Department of Aeronautics and Astronautics. And I will give you some introduction into the sustainable aviation work that we're doing in that department, specifically in the Lab for Aviation and the Environment. As we approach this topic, if I would ask all of you in this room who has flown in the past year, I would imagine that probably the vast majority say yes. And indeed, if you ask a random American adult today, if they had flown in the last year, about 40% would tell you, yes, I have. And actually 90% of them would tell you that they have flown in their lifetime. And they don't fly just for the sake of flying. They fly because there are benefits to that. Economic benefits, you can close that business deal in that faraway city, you can transport perishable goods. There are cultural benefits to it. You know, you get to know how other people think, how other people live. There are societal benefits to it. You might want to visit faraway friends and family. So that said, I think the other part that most people are aware of at this point is that, you know, this comes at an environmental cost. And aviation is responsible for about 2 to 3% of anthropogenic CO2 emissions. And now comes the interesting part, but about 5% of anthropogenic radiative forcing. So 5% of the warming. Why the difference? Because aviation is very unique. It has non-CO2 impacts. For example, these contrails, these white clouds you see behind aircraft, they may be responsible for up to 50% of aviation's climate impact. So the question is, what are we doing about this problem? And here at MIT, in the Lab for Aviation and the Environment, what we imagine is a green, a zero environmental impact future for aviation that can actually create these significant benefits to society that I just talked about. Now, this is a tough problem. And one of the questions is, how do we solve this tough problem? And the approach that we are taking to this is basically twofold. We start our work by thinking about understanding and advancing the understanding of the impacts that aviation has on the environment, and do this very holistically, because we need this picture, and we need to start with this picture to solve this complex problem. And then that is really the second part of the mission we have, is to develop the technical and also the policy solution to make aviation an environmentally sustainable sector. So the approach we take generally follows these two big buckets that I just talked about: the impact side and the development and assessment side. On the impact side, most of the work we do is actually on understanding aviation's impacts on the atmosphere, thinking about climate and thinking about air pollution. Don't forget the air pollution part, it's actually important for aviation. We do this in collaboration with many others on campus, where specifically what we can add is this specific question of what happens if you emit at higher altitudes, a very specific question for aviation. The other part of the modeling we do together with our sister institute, the International Center for Air Transportation, is on noise mitigation close to airports. And then we think about developing and assessing solutions. And we have 4 big buckets of work we do in that context. We think a lot about fuels and energy, thinking about the availability of alternative fuels, including sustainable aviation fuels, but also things like hydrogen, electricity, etc. Thinking about life cycle impacts, so emissions, thinking about cost, and thinking about resource availability, specifically for the aviation sector. We're doing a lot of work in propulsion and emissions, again, with our partners within the Astro department, specifically here, the Gas Turbine Laboratory. We work together on engine, on propulsor concepts. You know, how do you create an engine for hydrogen, for example, for an aircraft? How do you think about electric propulsion? We work on operational measures, again, together with our colleagues in the International Center for Air Transportation, on noise mitigation close to airports, but also on how you could actually operate an aircraft so that you don't form a contrail which may be responsible for 50% of climate impacts for aviation. And we do a systems design, because you kind of see like all these piecemeal technologies, and the big question is, can you actually bring them together in a system that works and that isn't atrociously expensive so that we can't get to the benefits anymore? So that's the last big part. We don't do this by sitting in our offices and writing scientific papers. The work we do is really about impact. And we have a long history of influencing policy through working with the Federal Aviation Administration, through working and actually helping international policymaking in the international arena through ICAO. But we also work with industry, and that's an invitation to all of our guests here today. We're launching what is called the Zero Impact Aviation Alliance just now, which will actually sort of structure this discussion around sustainable aviation. So if you're interested in that, come to our aviation workshop tomorrow. We have representatives from the entire value chain of aviations, including airline, airframers, an engine manufacturer, we have fuel companies, we have an airport, so that's going to be an interesting discussion. If you're interested in further discussing with us, reach out to me or your ILP program director, and we'll be happy to take this discussion forward. Thank you very much.
Been told I have to go back. Is that better? Okay. Otherwise known as JWAFs. So structurally, we sit under the Vice President for Research. We work across all schools, all departments, across 57 labs here at MIT. We really bring together the top experts to tackle some of the most challenging, most pressuring water and food system problems. Now, growing up in Australia, I always remember living under some sort of water restriction, whether it is timed showers, or no sprinklers, or only being able to water the garden at a particular time of the day. But I never thought very deeply about the water that flows so easily through my faucet with the simple turn of a handle. Now, more recently, we are being bombarded with headlines after headlines about water crises around the world. Whether it is perfect, thank you. Whether it is the environmental risks from mine tailing, or some countries in the world having very little water, or other countries in the world having way too much water. In fact, when we look closer to home, we are in a 22-year mega drought in United States, western parts of the United States. And that's like the driest we have been for 1,200 years. On a more micro level, we have folks who are fighting for access to clean water in Jackson. We have folks who are drinking water with high levels of arsenic in supposedly the greatest city in the world, New York. And these are dire, dire situations. And luckily, MIT researchers are working to tackle some of these challenges. We have researchers working on trying to capture water from the atmosphere. We have researchers working on low-tech, low-cost technologies to extract contaminants from the water at low concentrations, such as heavy metal. We also have scientists who have built these portable kits that can turn seawater into pure drinking water with a simple push of a button. No filters required, no high-pressure pumps, and it can work completely off the grid. We are also constantly challenging the status quo around what we understand around water research, whether it is fouling or reverse osmosis. We have researchers trying to tackle those challenges. And along with other groups at MIT, like the Engine, we are working to identify the high potential technologies and to commercialize them, to move them out of our labs and into the marketplace. But we can do better. We need your help. We need to better understand what are the key water issues facing your organizations today, so that our researchers can work on practical solutions that can enter the marketplace and make a big difference in the world. And so tomorrow, I urge you to attend our workshop. At 11 o'clock, we will be focusing on industrial wastewater solutions. And so you will hear briefly from our founding director, Professor John Leonhard, who will give you some background about JWAF and ways that you can engage with us. Following his brief introduction, we will jump into an interactive, facilitated brainstorming session where you, as the audience, can tell us some of the key challenges that you're dealing with in your corporation around industrial wastewater. And as a group, we can work together to brainstorm some potential research project topics. Following that session, we'll also showcase 5 top MIT researchers working on water innovation. And finally, we'll finish off with a networking lunch. And so I hope many of you will take the time to join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. And in the meantime, let's connect. That's our Twitter handle, our LinkedIn, and you can also use the QR code to subscribe to our newsletter. So thank you very much again for your attention, and I hope to see many of you tomorrow.